Good evening and welcome to Massey United Insurance's Line and Length. I'm your host, Andrew Seeley. And Jermaine Blackwood is the toast of West Indies cricket at the moment. And when we come back on Massey United Insurance's Line and Length, he talks to our Barry Wilkinson in Antigua.
Across the Caribbean, more people are placing their trust in Massey United Insurance for the protection of the things that are important to them, their homes, businesses, and their prized possessions. That's because Massey United Insurance offers excellent general insurance coverage to help you manage whatever life sends your way. Our cadre of well-reputed agencies and trained insurance professionals are always ready to provide you with sound advice and prompt service. Choose the security and sound strength that is Massey United Insurance.
Barbados, are you ready for Movado?
She says our destiny, she get next to me.
FAS Entertainment presents the Digicel Reggae Beach Party, Sunday, April 19th at the all-new Reggae Island from 3 p.m. featuring the new sensation, Gully Bop.
Every girl want to walk off
Popcorn. The return of Movado. Plus Lead Pipe and Satis, Brutal, Kirk Brown, Mad Dog, Peter Ram, Celebrity Face, Lady Essence, Stiffy, Mole and Slims, MC Jamar the Star. The Digicel Reggae Beach Party, Sunday, April 19th at the all-new Reggae Island, Pierhead Lane, Lower Bay Street from 3 p.m. It begins here.
Okay, Jermaine, congratulations. Maiden Test century. The feeling must be a very good one.
Yeah, definitely. It's a very good feeling to make a maiden Test 100. I can't really explain how I feel right now. I feel very good within myself. I just want to say thanks to my family who's been supporting me all the way. Russell, Chris, and everybody who's been supporting me.
I can't help but wonder and look at you and say, well, when you batted, there seemed to be a bit of a Sir Vivian Richards element in your batting. Has he been an influence in your cricket?
Yes, certainly, Viv. I talked to Viv a lot. I worked with Viv at the HPC, and Viv was very close to me because he said I remind him of when he used to play. So he was always telling me to stay positive and always to play my game.
You also had good words of messages from Chris Gayle. He sent a tweet. Andrew Russell. Tell me a bit about those two influences on your game.
Well, Russell is like almost, I don't know what to say. Russell is like my big brother, man. Even this morning, Manja Russell messaged me, and he told me I just have to get the 100. And he said his money is not better, but if I make the 100, his day will certainly be great. So Russell's been a big influence in my cricket. You can say I practically live with Russell in Jamaica. And Chris is like my father. No doubt about that. Chris is like my father. Even last night he messaged me and he was telling me that just to carry on and just continue to play my game and make a big one.
Okay, now in terms of your batting style and approach, many people might think it's more suited to one-day cricket or even T20. What is your favorite format?
My favorite format is Test cricket. I really enjoy playing Test cricket because that's the ultimate test, and it's the highest level in cricket. So I always dream about playing for West Indies and playing Test cricket for West Indies, and now I'm doing it. So it's a wonderful accomplishment for me, and I'm just looking to continue to go on and make big scores as much as possible.
Thanks very much, Barry, and welcome back to Massey United Insurance's Line and Length. And in the studio, Hendy Wallace. Hendy, welcome to the program once again.
Thank you very much, Andrew. Pleasure to be here.
Certainly interesting to hear from Jermaine Blackwood, his preference, first of all, for Test cricket. Refreshing to hear a 23-year-old on at the start of his career suggesting Test cricket is where he wants to be.
Yeah, you're pleased to hear that sort of response coming from a young player. Only time will tell how long he'll be able to say that and what influences there may be otherwise. He also mentioned about the influence from Sir Viv, and it's good to hear that Sir Viv's involvement at the High Performance Centre has borne fruit, so to speak. And we often talk about the players, listening to the great players and picking their brains, and it's good to see that the way he structured that particular innings. He mentioned about Viv telling him to be patient but still to be positive. which meant that the shot selection was probably more critical than anything else. And I think for the large part, he exhibited that in the innings.
Well, if we analyze his innings, and the English have been singing his praises, interestingly enough, because they are suggesting it takes us back to an era of West Indies cricket, the Viv Richards type cricketer, the Desmond Haynes, the Gordon Greenidge type. Yes, you can be defensive, as you mentioned, but you can also have an aggressive streak if there is a bad ball, as opposed to defending your wicket.
Well, we also have a saying in coaching terms, you can be positive in defense. It's about the whole body structure, the aura, about the way you present yourself. And we go back to Sir Viv, it was often said that when he walked out to the crease, there was an aura about Sir Viv before he even faced the delivery. So even in defense, you want to have that sound base, a good body posture, so you sort of give that air of confidence about your stroke play. And I think that's where being patient, and also in defense, you still want to have that attacking intent. So when the ball's delivered, you say to young batsmen, your first objective is to score. And then if it becomes a very good delivery, then you defend. But the mindset should be looking to score, attack. And attack doesn't necessarily mean a 4 or 6. And I think that's something too that's missing from a lot of our young batsmen. They only seem to be intent on striking boundaries. I'm not sure that they appreciate the value of rotating the strike and the value of 1s and 2s.
It's not often as well, Hendy, that we have a player at this stage of his career. It's just his 6th Test match, and for West Indian to have scored 3 half centuries and now his first century. But also what has happened is he has been dropped twice, but it apparently has not had the negative impact that could have occurred to another player.
Well, the good thing was that when he was dropped, at least he was involved in a structured program, this being at the High Performance Center. So again, we see the value of having something like the High Performance Center, or an academy, for a more familiar term, means that those players, when they're out of the main setup, out of the main West Indies team, they're still involved in a structured program. So you can still hone your skills, and when you're given the opportunity to come back in, this is the benefit. You come back in, you're going to hit the ground running.
He also mentioned the influence of Chris Gayle and Andre Russell, quite naturally he being from Jamaica as well as those two. But he did mention the influence and the tweets that he received from both of them as he continued in his innings, which is certainly a good thing to see, that even though they're far away at the IPL, they're still following the progress of West Indies cricket. And
it's good to see that they have a positive influence on a fellow Jamaican and a young cricketer. Again, that can only augur well. These are guys that at one level or another have attained a certain amount of popularity and recognition globally. And surely that in itself can be an inspiration for any young cricketer to try and achieve something similar. So it's good to see that they have that influence on him, and he's reacting to that sort of attention and guidance.
But generally now, if we look at the first Test match being played in Antigua, obviously by the time we've recorded, the game would have been concluded. But at this stage, England hold the upper hand. How do you see the overall performance of the Windies team so far, bearing in mind that we're still actually number 3 facing number 8 in terms of the Test cricket rankings?
And that's so important, Andrew. Sometimes we forget that these rankings are not far off the truth. And people are saying these are 2 Test teams that have been very low on confidence and low in form as well, pitting their skills against each other. And I'm not so sure that the home advantage would maybe do too much for West Indies. So I still think that they're very much the underdogs in this series. And I sort of expected that the surfaces they would meet would make it very difficult for the West Indies bowlers, especially if they go in with just the 4 frontline bowlers, i.e. with the 3 seamers and the 1 spinner. So you're really asking a lot in good conditions. So I felt that we were always going to be under the cosh, and England obviously got themselves in a good position. Once they negotiated that first session, when the West Indies picked up those early wickets, they really clawed their way back into the game, and then from there on in, it was ascendancy.
Well, and we have seen some positive aspects apart from Jermaine Blackwood, obviously, in terms of the West Indies performance. Kemar Roach and Jerome Taylor seem to be getting back to the type of form that is essential for West Indies cricket to progress. However, the performance of Sulman Ben has been a disappointment.
It has. In a bowling structure like that, you expect more.
Yeah.
You expect more from your sole spinner or your frontline spinner. Once you get past that first session and a half, maybe 2 sessions, you then expect your spinner to perform that holding role in the first innings, because he's going to come into the attack a little bit earlier than normal with just the 4 frontline bowlers, and he has to perform that holding role. And you're hopeful then that by the last innings, he then comes into his own as your match winner. Now, the form of Ben didn't look good in this test match, so that must be a real concern for the selectors.
Well, as we look forward, we've had a squad of 14 selected. I imagine that will probably remain the same going into the second test match in Grenada. Do you foresee any changes given the possibility that England may end up in the ascendancy in this first test?
Well, they'll have to reevaluate the whole the strategy. And I think if you're just looking to compete and maybe play for a draw at best, then you probably can work with that formula. I still think that this particular attack will struggle to get 20 wickets in a test match on the surfaces that you're likely to get here in Antigua, and then they go to Grenada. Maybe a little bit different in Barbados, where they may be a little bit more extra bounce and probably a bit more pace in the surface. But certainly for the first 2 test matches, I think this particular bowling combination for the West Indies will struggle to get 20 wickets.
That's Hendy Wallace, and you're watching Massey United Insurance Designer Live. When we come back, we hear from the Prime Minister of Antigua and Barbuda, Gaston Browne, as he talks about redevelopment at the Sir Vivian Richards Cricket Stadium.
Across the Caribbean, more people are placing their trust in Massey United Insurance for the protection of the things that are important to them, their homes, businesses, and their prized possessions. That's because Massey United Insurance offers excellent general insurance coverage to help you manage whatever life sends your way. Our cadre of well-reputed agencies and trained insurance professionals are always ready to provide you with sound advice and prompt service. Choose the security and sound strength that is Massey United Insurance.
It was very important for me to be here. This is a very important game to Antigua and Barbuda. As you know, we invested a significant amount of money to get this game. We invested $500,000 US to get a game here. In addition, we had to spruce up the stadium. So for example, we bought a new screen, and that ran us about $2 million. We also, as you recognize, we have new seating. We actually literally spruce up the entire stadium in order to make sure that we have a first-class venue. And I'm told right now that the Antiguan venue is certainly one of the best in the world.
Certainly a lot of improvements here, and everybody has reacted very positively, not just to the changes in the seats.
You mean we have moved from the partisan colors to nationalistic colors? And very creative indeed, colors of the flag. So, you know, it's an investment for us really. The truth is, the interest in cricket in this country has waned over the years to the extent we do not even have a single player on the West Indies side. So what we've done here is that we have in essence subsidized the cost of the tickets so that we could have more locals involved. And we have had thousands of them here. I'm told that on the first day, we had over 10,000 individuals here on the grounds. It would have been the single largest attendance of any cricket function here at the Sir Vivian Richards Stadium. So it is clear that the investment would have paid off in terms of the level of participation. In addition, we've had over 4,000 tourists coming out of the UK. So I think that our government made the right decision to subsidize this game and to invest in the development of the stadium.
The stadium now, as I understand it from Minister Green, is now really open not just for Test cricket, but certainly for sporting organizations across the country who are really looking for a facility.
Well, absolutely. The whole idea is to turn it into a profit center. We're even looking external of the country as well. We're hoping that we can attract teams out of the UK, out of North America, to come here and to use the facility so that it could generate funds and become perhaps more of a profit center instead of a cost center.
Thanks very much there to Julian Rogers and Prime Minister of Antigua and Barbuda, Gaston Browne. And Hendy, interesting comments there from the Prime Minister in terms of what Antigua and Barbuda sees as being important out of an English tour. And I think this is the reality across the region, isn't it?
Absolutely. The England tour is the real revenue generator for the region, whether it be travel, whether it be the young entrepreneurs along the way in the ports, airports, seaports, the hotel industry. And I think all the governments really look forward to the English tour. I think we would like to have it a little bit more often. Mind you, it wouldn't be that feasible to have it every 2 years or so. I mean, but in the past it was always a 4-year tour,
4 years?
and
It
you
used
look
to
forward
be,
to it.
yeah.
Now, you will see that the stadia around the region who are hosting the English players will be looking to spruce up their facilities as well, because you still want to put on a good show. You want to put on a show not just on the field of play, but the whole package as it relates to an England tour.
He mentioned a crowd estimated, because we have not been given official figures, at approximately 10,000. At least 2/3 or maybe 3/4 of them were English tourists. And certainly as a hotelier in your own right, Andy, what sort of impact would that have economically on the region?
Well, that's what I said. You know, it goes back to what I'm saying there. Like, you look at all the way across the board from the time they arrive at the airports. You have the concession stalls at the airports. You have the taxi drivers. Then you have the hotels themselves, the beach vendors, and it's just right across the board. The restaurants, the top class restaurants, the ones that are what we call the local, the one with the local flavors. Everybody's going to benefit across the board, and the knock-on effect there is invaluable. So to encapsulate that, to say that everybody looks forward, even the non-cricket person looks forward to the England tour.
How important is the quality of the cricket? Because that's the other point. There are travelers, the Barmy Army, etc., etc. And I sometimes wonder if the level or quality of the cricket is actually important to them.
I want to say that the cricket is not that the quality of cricket is not that important, but it would be unfair for me to say that. But when you look at coming to cricket in the Caribbean, and I think this is one of the disturbing things about the World Cup that we missed out. A lot of people saw the visit to the Caribbean for the World Cup as an experience, not just for the cricket, but to see cricket the West Indian way. And we had all the restrictions in place, which I felt really dealt a severe blow to what we were capable of putting on for the world. And I'm saying all that to say that when an England tour comes out like this, you'll have, and it happens in Barbados as well, and we expect the same thing to happen in Barbados, where the numbers will be, the locals will be outnumbered by the visitors. And it gives a different atmosphere. Certainly in the last 10 years, 15 years or so, that has been the trend in Barbados, and it's obviously happening around the region as well. So it's an occasion. The destination is still very high on the market. So the cricket may be secondary, it's the vehicle, but I don't know if the quality of the cricket is all that important.
Well, the Prime Minister also mentioned about what the quantum of money, which quite a bit of money the Antigua government has actually spent to ensure that the test match was being played in Antigua. And we juxtapose that with Derek Murray, the president of the Queen's Park Cricket Club himself, a former West Indies vice captain, expressing the lament that Trinidad and Tobago has not got a test match for this year. And the competitive spirit among the regional cricket boards. Take us through that.
That's understandable too. We go back to the World Cup. Now, Trinidad and Tobago was probably one of the territories that didn't actually break the bank to try and refurbish their facilities because they felt that they had a good enough structure and it just needed a little bit of sprucing up. Whereas the majority of the other venues built new stadia, or really did a significant development as it did in Barbados. And again, it comes back to what I'm saying there, Andrew, that England tour is seen as a real revenue earner. Now, one of the concerns when they were doing all the major redevelopments is whether you would have enough cricket to justify the money that was spent to build these new stadia. And it was then seen that really from an economic standpoint, it was more viable to use it as a multifaceted stadium. So if you have now your different sports, you have concerts and what have you, gospel shows and what have you. So you really have to maximize these venues to really generate some sort of income to go somewhere near to paying off the debt. Otherwise, you just end up with a white elephant. There has been some concern, now you mentioned white elephant, right here in Barbados, about what they've fallen apart somewhat of Kensington Oval, the lack of ability to maintain the facility. Obviously, with the expectation of the stadium being almost full, certainly for at least the first 3 days of that third test match upcoming, starting on May Day. Have you seen yourself any improvements being made at Kensington? Because when we were there for the Professional Cricket League, you could see that some work needed to be done. Well, not speaking from a position of authority, I have seen some plans in place, and there has been some work going on at the Kensington Oval. But I think one of the real concerns has been the maintenance periodically over the years has really been neglected, and that may have been due to funding or what have you. And it's not for trying, but the funds just apparently were not available to maintain Kensington Oval as is required. And it's quite an expensive operation to maintain a structure of that magnitude. And at the same time, you're having all the other events that we spoke of. So it's still getting some work. There's still some wear and tear on the facility, but not able to maintain it the way that you would expect one of that magnitude.
Well, you mentioned that point, and I think it's a paradox we have in the region, because we now have approximately 10 facilities. This year we have 5 test matches only. So there'll always be a difficulty in terms of everybody getting exactly what they want.
But this is where now the quality of cricket will become a benefit, because if West Indies are playing good cricket, then they'll get more test matches according to the structure of the ICC structure of the cricket. So that's really now where the sponsors and the respective territories are urging our cricketers to lift their game and play better cricket, because the long-term effect would be that you will have a 5-test series against England, and maybe you have 2 other nations come in the year. So the aim is to try and get at least 7 test matches a year, which at the moment is some ways off.
That's Hendy Wallace, some ways off at the moment when you're languishing at number 8. You're watching Massey United Insurance's Dine Life. When we come back, we take a quick look at the great Richie Benaud and talk a little bit about the IPL. Yes, it's going on, and you're watching it on Digicel Sports Max. We'll be back in just a moment.
Across the Caribbean, more people are placing their trust in Massey United Insurance for the protection of the things that are important to them, their homes, businesses, and their prized possessions. That's because Massey United Insurance offers excellent general insurance coverage to help you manage whatever life sends your way. Our cadre of well-reputed agencies and trained insurance professionals are always ready to provide you with sound advice and prompt service. Choose the security and sound strength that is Massey United Insurance.
Barbados, are you ready for Movado?
She says our destiny, she get next to me.
FAS Entertainment presents the Digicel Reggae Beach Party, Sunday, April 19th at the all-new Reggae Island from 3 p.m. featuring the new sensation, Gully Bob.
Every girl want to walk off of
Popcorn.
Champagne, just
The return of Movado. Plus Flat Pipe and Satis, Brutal, Kirk Brown, Mad Dog, Peter Ram, Celebrity Face, Lady Essence, Stiffy, Mole, and Slims. MC Jamar the Star. The Digicel Reggae Beach Party, Sunday, April 19th at the all-new Reggae Island, Pierhead Lane, Lower Bay Street from 3 p.m. It begins here.
And welcome back to Massey United Insurance's Line on Line for our final segment. And Richie Benaud, great Australian cricket captain, but also a legendary commentator who moved easily from radio to TV. Hendy Wallace, as a gentleman who operates also on both radio and TV, you certainly would have enjoyed listening and interacting with Richie Benaud.
Absolutely, and you learned so much from the man, because he was very approachable. And he had this demeanor as well, never seemed to change, even in what we would consider exciting situations. He just had this calmness about him, and without really affecting the delivery. So he still, I guess it was his words, the choice of words, and he never seemed to be ruffled, never seemed to be short of an explanation. And he was just a know-all as far as we were concerned in the cricket commentary.
Well, as we mentioned, a know-all, the comments from all and sundry, from Shane Warne to Jeffrey Boycott to our Right Excellence of Garfield Sobers, our own cricket guru, Tony Cozier, have been the same, that he was the ultimate cricket commentator. And this certainly says a whole lot in an era when there are so many individuals, some may say masquerading as commentators now, that all and sundry could make the same comment about a Richie Benaud.
Yeah, I mean, I used to like to think I'm still in the learning curve, because you gather experience as you go along, and we always say that it's so much different to commentate on television as opposed to doing it on radio. And the thing about television, and I always heard Richie Benaud say this, the difference about television was the added value. Be always mindful that the viewer can make judgments for themselves when you're watching the television. So as a television commentator, you want to bring that added value. And I think that was one of the things about Richie Benaud, which we all look forward to from his playing days, being an excellent cricketer and a fantastic captain. He brought that added value to the commentary, to all of us, even the current players. You heard the views from some of the current players, because again, being approachable, he would always discuss what he did in the commentary box. He was very keen to discuss it with the players.
In an era now when so many players are moving almost seamlessly, former players that is, seamlessly from the playing field into the commentary box, and some moving back, as in Kevin Peterson, it's refreshing for the fact that they probably could have learned quite a bit from Richie Benaud.
Oh, absolutely, because some of the current players, when they move into the commentary boxes, it seems like the automatic thing, but sometimes they're still in a cocoon. And to appreciate that the viewer is not necessarily au fait with a lot of the cricketing terms and their reasoning behind certain ideas and comments. Now, the good thing about it is that I think the listening public and the viewers liked when former players come into the box, because it is meant to bring an insight to what really goes on. Well, yes, what goes on behind the scenes in terms of preparation, what happens in the dressing room when players are preparing to come out to do battle. So again, it goes back to the added value which the viewer looks forward to. And I think that the modern commentators, the guys who have recently come off the playing field, have to remember that when they're doing their presentations.
Hendy, the India Premier League is actually going on. We've been concentrating, obviously, because Test cricket is back in the Caribbean. We haven't had it for a while. But some West Indian players are at the IPL, some not doing as well as others. Chris Gayle scored a 95 just recently. The Indian Premier League, is it too much cricket coming straight after the 2015 World Cup? It seems like a surfeit of cricket.
Yeah, it's too much for me. And to be quite honest, you have that interest in the West Indian players to see how they're doing, but even then, it's more like news. You revert 2 days later or you revert 2 days back to see exactly how they're done, just to keep abreast of the happenings. But to actually sit there and watch the cricket, and as you know, Andrew, I'm a bit of a purist, so Test cricket is my thing. So I'm looking forward to the Test cricket and then seeing how well the West Indies will do, and even looking forward to the Ashes with England and Australia. That's obviously going to be very interesting as well. So Test cricket is my thing. But to answer your question, yes, it's a bit too much, but suffice to say that it's here to stay.
We have seen, though, and you mentioned the Ashes, we have seen, though, quite a few Australians pulling out of the IPL, indicating that they are getting ready for the Ashes tour. They mentioned for the West Indies tour, which will be a little surprising to me. But I think more importantly, the Ashes tour, it says to me the importance of the Ashes series to England and Australia.
And maybe that's the way that we need to go.
We as West Indies or West Indies Cricket Board?
Yes, because there will be players that will be attracted to the IPL and other franchise tournaments, which is perfectly understandable because they're talented, and it's an opportunity for them as well to play their trade and be properly compensated for it. Now, I don't think it is feasible to incorporate the two, Test cricket and all these other franchises around the world. So it really disrupts your preparation for major events like that. So I think with the Australian setup, they've got enough cricketers, those that can go to the IPL who choose to go that route. But if you really want to have a stable and organized Test cricket team, you're going to have to keep them together for much longer periods and prepare a lot better. So no surprise to me to see that the Australian cricketers who are expected to be part of the Ashes setup or to be in the reckoning have opted to forego their IPL contracts at this stage.
That's Hendy Wallace with his insightful comments as usual on Massey United Insurance Design and Life. Tonight you heard from Jermaine Blackwood, and you also heard from the Prime Minister of Antigua and Barbuda, the Honourable Gaston Brown. I'm your host, Andrew Seeley. Join us next week for more on Massey United Insurance's Design and Life.